Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Thaller. I am the president of PDA-CA, and welcome to our meeting that is the result of a survey that we took. And I have to admit that I was a little hesitant to do a survey. And the reason why is because what I find is that when organizations like ours do surveys, it's mostly to raise money and they really don't care what your answers are. But we did our survey because people were just curious as to what PDA-CA people or, PDA California people, who they wanted to be, who they wanted to be the next governor. And we asked we asked a bunch of questions. The first question we asked was, are you a Californian? Because if you're not, we're not really interested. The next one was, what county are you from? So we could do statistics, what do people in such and such county do? What party are you in? What's your ideology? And the big question, who would you vote for in the primary election if the election were held right this minute? Um, the one thing about PDA-CA that's means something here is that we used to when we're also going to do an endorsement or at least announce an endorsement. And in the past, what we would do is back before COVID, when we actually had chapters, the chapters would come up with their endorsements, and then we would have a statewide meeting where people would actually vote. We don't have the resources for that anymore because we really don't have chapters after COVID. The chapters never came back. So the best we can do is have an all-state meeting and talk about it. But like Indivisible, what we've been doing because of that lack of resources is we have the officers have decided who we should endorse. In this case, we thought as long as we're doing a survey, let's endorse the person that gets the most votes for governor. So that's that. And I can tell you a couple, we'll go into more detail later. We do have a special guest joining us who might be able to give you a clue as to who got the most votes in the end.
Mike will be right there. Just 1 minute.
Oh, you're here. Okay. Never mind. Secret's out. Thank you for coming. Um, the so where was I? Anyway, so what we decided to do, I'm repeating myself, I realize, is whoever got the most votes would be the person we endorse. And as I say, the secret is out as to who that is. So I am hereby announcing that PDA-CA has endorsed Tom Steyer to be governor, and because that is the result of the polling. So, Tom, if you're ready, take your 5 or 10 minutes, whatever you'd like. But we're really thrilled to have you here.
So let me say that I'm thrilled to be here. And I want to believe and like to believe and do believe that I am the most progressive person running for governor of California by a long shot. And before I get into that, I do want to say to all the mothers on this call, man, mothers do it all. As a man, I want to say how much I respect what you do. I adored my own mother. She's my hero. And my wife is a total hero. And my daughter is a mom and my son's wife. And so I want everybody to know how much I respect that. And today's a great day for that. And it's one day a year to call attention to it isn't enough, but I want to make sure that on this one day that I do say that before I start. Um, Look, my campaign is pretty simple. My campaign is Californians can't afford to live in California anymore, and we need to change that. And the reason we can't change that is there are corporations making a fortune off us. And if you're not willing to take them on, you're not willing to make the change. And that's number one. And number two is I'm here to represent the underrepresented. I'm here to stand up for the people who aren't represented in the state of California and fight for them tooth and nail. And so let me talk a little bit. I normally would want this to be an hour and a half, and instead it's 10 minutes. But let me say the issues are about housing. I'm for renter protection. I'm for expanding renters' credits, letting people write off their rent the way people write off their mortgage payments. I'm for single payer healthcare. And anybody who isn't for that doesn't look at the numbers or else doesn't believe that healthcare is a right for every Californian. And I believe healthcare is right for every Californian. And the only way we can afford to do it, it is chewing up every family. It is chewing up every small business and it's chewing up the budget of the state of California. We have to be single payer. And people say to me, it's really hard to get that. And I'm like, yes, it is really hard to get that, but we don't have a choice. So I'm going to definitely do that. I am for breaking the power of the electric monopolies in our state. There are three of them. They charge us twice as much as electricity costs in the rest of the United States, and no one else will take them on. They're spending tens of millions of dollars against me. I don't care. You don't beat them unless you take them on. I've spent a lifetime fighting big oil. Big oil is gouging us. The head of the Western States Petroleum Association, which is the lobbying group for oil in California, said in Sacramento this week, it is the fiduciary duty of big oil companies to charge the maximum that they can during the Iran war at the expense of Californians. So in case you have any wonder about whether they care about anything but their bottom line, their answer is they need to charge the maximum amount when we're at our weakest. And I'm like, okay, Grant, windfall profits tax, baby. It's on the books. We only have to activate it. And then we can take that money and send it directly back to the people who are paying at the pump. So the other thing you should know, day one, call a special election, close a corporate real estate tax loophole called split roll, $20 billion to the state, use it. We are not an excellent educational state anymore, and we can't afford healthcare. And that money is to do that, to be able to pay teachers fairly, to attract, train, and retain the best teachers we can possibly get. We can't afford it now. We can't afford healthcare. So in a very large way, I want to talk for once. Wow. I've spent today first with a bunch of Latinos out on soccer fields, both playing, because I love to play soccer, just so you guys know, even though now I really am too old and I'm just awful. And then talking, and then in a Sikh temple, and then with a group of Mexican American ranchers. And in every single one, I talked about ICE. And in every single one, that resonated. And let me say, I believe ICE is a criminal organization. I know we need immigration services, but it's a criminal organization that was designed to racially profile, terrorize, and victimize Californians. It should be abolished, honestly. There's no way to reform a criminal organization. But having said that, we have the strongest anti-ICE policy, including prosecuting ICE agents for racial stereotyping, which is illegal in the state of California, prosecuting them for violence against Californians, which is illegal, and going up the chain to the people who send them to do the violence, insisting on investigating the detention centers, which are clearly breaking the law, which is why they won't let anybody inside to see what's really going on, having a well-funded legal defense fund for people who've been kidnapped or people who are under threat of deportation. And both Donald Trump and the head of ICE went online to say what a sleazeball I am and how unfair I am to ICE agents, just so you guys know. And I want to say, sometimes you know who somebody is because of the people who can't stand them. And the people who can't stand me are big electric monopolies, big oil companies, health insurers, Uber, the prison guards, Donald Trump, and ICE. And the people who really like me are progressives, every environmentalist in the state, organized labor. And it's like the old saying, they have the money, we have the many. There's only one person who is running for governor of California who wants to take on the corporate special interests, and it's me. And I'm willing to do it, and I don't have any conflict about who I'm representing in this race. I will say, I have been shocked. I am no spring chicken, and I thought I was like a reasonably knowledgeable person. I have been shocked at the power of corporate money in this race. The billionaires who are supporting their candidate, and his goal is to assure them he will never tax them. You are safe. If you elect me, you are safe. You will never pay a penny more of tax. I will fight taxes, and I will fund the government from waste, fraud, and abuse, which, by the way, is a delusion and a dream. It's not true or possible. The person who used to be the controller, Betty Yee, dropped out and is endorsing me. And I asked her, and she told me to a penny what she thought we could get. And it doesn't it's a lot of money, but it doesn't solve the problems of California. And I was shocked that Javier Becerra was taking the max money from Big Oil, from Chevron, and standing up for them in public and saying they're good guys, and taking the maximum amount of money from the California Medical Association, who are fervently anti-single payer, and then not admitting that he was anti-single payer. This is a very simple race. Do you want to change California for working people and make it affordable and just, or not? And if we're going to do it, we're going to have to take on the corporate special interest. There's no other way to do it. And there's only one person who's willing to do it. And you can look across every single policy vertical and see what we're standing for and see that we're basically standing alone. And that's fine, because that's the choice I want. I want Californians to know there's someone who will take this fight, and they're not two. And that's why I'm so proud to have your guys endorse me, because you stand for what I stand for, not what I want people to know that I stand for. And so I'm for Team California, and Team California is the people of California. And I am incredibly competitive about them getting a fair break. And the last thing I want to say is this. This sounds like it's one big fight. And there's a lot of fighting involved in this, but I want to say this. We have the chance to have the greatest state ever. We have a chance to create the most perfect place to live on the planet Earth in the history of human beings in California right now. An amazing opportunity where people do get the education, the health care, the services they need, the ability to buy a home, the ability to live in the most beautiful, incredible place and succeed, be competitive, do a great job, and bring everybody along. Shared prosperity. Prosperity that we bring everybody along. And that's what I am fighting for. And that's what I believe is possible. And I believe we can literally create the best place to live in the history of the planet Earth. And that is what I am going to do.
Thank you, Tom. You've given us a lot to think about, and we will probably discuss it behind your back later in the meeting.
Okay.
And
well,
I do
appreciate you guys taking the time, and I really do.
Okay.
Now, I wanted you guys to know, this is not, people ask me today, why can I believe you? I've done this for the last 14 years. I've taken on these corporations and beaten them over and over again. If we're going to change this, we're going to need someone who's willing and able to do that, and who's not going to back down, who doesn't need their money, who's not going to take their money, but who's going to take them on and win. And that's what I'm going to do. That's what I've been doing for 14 years. We could go into that too. But let me say, I've taken them on 3 times at the ballot box. We're 3 for 3. I've done the same outside California 3 times. We're 3 for 3. We're going to win this, and we're going to change this state for the better.
Okay. Thank you. I know you don't have time for Q&A, but I do have a question that actually isn't even particularly political. Do you remember at the Democratic convention a couple months ago when you had that luncheon and some guy came up to you and said, "Hey, you endorsed me for or you said you would endorse me for something that he was running for.
Yeah.
I figured not because you're doing a lot of stuff. I just wanted to let you know that was me. So,
Well, Mike, let me say this.
hmm,
I do have to go, but if we should set up a call after this, I'm very happy to do it. I'm just have to
that would be
plan.
fantastic. Make
Do
sure
that.
I have your, I guess, phone number so I can literally call you.
Send me a text. I'll never answer the phone, but I do
Okay.
respond to text 415.
Whoa, wait a minute. Here we go. 415. Uh-huh.
Hey, Tom, I can get Mike your number later if that's okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's probably
Okay,
a
All
good
let's
right.
set this
idea.
up.
Yeah.
I'm going to at least
Otherwise,
respond before I send you.
you're telling 91 people what your phone number is. But
I respond to 91 people. I'm happy to talk.
all right. Okay,
Okay.
thank you
Thank
again.
you guys so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate you
Well,
coming and speaking to us.
it's my pleasure, and I appreciate you guys. I really want to stand with you guys pretty much across the board. Take a look at our policies and see if they don't. I think they do.
Yes, I agree. And as I say, I've known you for about 10 years, even though you may not remember. Bye.
Talk again. Talk to you. And thank you guys. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Okay. Michael, I've been talking to you. I had no idea what you looked like. Okay, so it's time to move on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion of the survey. And that may sound boring, and it might be, but it was an interesting result. I'm not going to take a lot of time with it because, it's just not, it's kind of a downer compared to hearing from our newly endorsed person. But okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm getting ready to share my screen. And here it is. And I didn't have time to put together a fancy PowerPoint, so you'll have to bear with this. Here are the results from the survey. And as you can see, Tom Steyer got more than twice as many votes, percentage-wise, well, works either way, as Katie Porter. That was significant to us because Tom almost got more than, well, he actually did get more than everyone combined, if you leave out, or if you include, wait a minute, if you leave out other. So with other, if he would have gotten the other votes, he would have done even better. Now, what I did was I looked at who are as you'll see, the top three here, uh, Tom Steyer, Katie Porter, Xavier Becerra, have double-digit votes, and the others that people were answering got single-digit votes. And so if I figured what would happen if we removed them, if in the top three, what was the percentages? And you can see over here that Tom's still would have gotten, he would have been boosted. They all three would have been boosted, and Tom still would be more than. Is that more than 26 times 2 is 52, isn't it? Yes, it is. So he still gets more than the other two combined. So that's that part of this primary survey. And for endorsing Tom Steyer, when it said the question was Betty, we had endorsed Betty Yee. To honor Betty Yee, should we endorse Tom Steyer? And what we got is look at these numbers, which is the actual raw percentages. He clearly got the top vote. The this number that's over here is what happened if we only counted the yes and no and didn't count the no opinion. So if we only had offered people yes or no, he would have gotten 58% of the vote, which is pretty significant, I would say. Now, over here is some statistics that um, are just a curiosity kind of statistics. We got vote. We've never had a poll that had the kind of widespread response that this one did. But there are 39 counties cast votes, and there's 58 counties altogether. So just over 2/3 of the counties of California had participants in this poll. The number one county, as far as participants go, no surprise, is Los Angeles. But following that, we had Alameda came in second, but look how far down they came. It just shows how populated Los Angeles is more than anything else. After that was Santa Clara, um, which surprised me a little bit because their population isn't as high as the three below them. So number 4 was San Diego, my home county. Below that was San Francisco and Orange, both somehow came up with the same percentage. The rest of the counties were uh, uh, obviously even lower. And I could say who the bottom counties were, except that we had, 33 counties or thereabouts. Well, a bunch of counties, well, 33% of the counties had no participation whatsoever. But we had some counties that had a participation of 0.3% because of all their voters, maybe only a handful voted. So that is slightly interesting. Now, the other thing that's interesting about the poll that came out, and I'm going to unshare my screen. The other thing that was interesting due to the poll is the answers people gave. And I think I already started to say this earlier, but we had, and I'm just trying to figure out what people were thinking. And what we had was one of our questions was the first question was, are you a Californian? And it turned out that 3 people said they were not registered to vote in California, or they didn't live in California even. But when I saw who they were, one of them was from Los Angeles, which is apparently not a county anymore. I don't know why they answered that. And 2 of them were from San Francisco. So we had 3 people that answered that question kind of in a strange way. I don't know if that's interesting or not. Okay, it's not. I'll go along with that. The other thing is we asked people what party they were a member of. And we had 3 options. I think it was 3. We had Democrat, we had what did we have? We had no party preference, and we had other, so that you could fill in your own. What we found, strangely enough, was a significant number of people under party put in their own name. And I thought the question was clear enough. What party are you a member of? And I'm wondering if they thought maybe we're having a party and they want to be invited. I don't know, but there was at least a dozen or 2 people who put in their own name, which is just kind of strange. And as you can imagine, we had a similar thing for who do you want to vote for? You saw the statistics, but what I left, the others included, once again, people who put in their own name. So, but all in all, I think the results of the survey are pretty, what's the word? Pretty valid, because they really are close to what the polls at the time were showing. So that was encouraging. And then, okay, and that's it. Any questions about the survey? Any doubts? Any whatever? If so, raise your electronic hand. Okay. Regina? Okay.
Yeah,
Comment or
I,
question?
yeah, I don't think you accurately represented just the last thing. I'm a Green Party member, and I believe I designated that in this poll.
That's true, you did. I
Oh,
mean,
you
there are
just,
Green Party people in the poll,
okay,
and there's
you didn't indicate that that was one of the categories. So
no, it
I would
just
like
wasn't
to
it
see,
wasn't a checkbox. So people would have to write it in, which you
no,
did.
I believe it was a checkbox, but I can't recall the
No, it
definitely.
wasn't. It was the being
Oh,
the
it's
person that
under.
uh
All right,
wrote
fine.
this
But
book.
can you publish the entire results of your poll? That would be useful for people since you did it, the survey to
Okay,
members.
well, here's what I can tell you. I
Just
can
publish
tell
the
you
result.
that, just a minute. I can tell you that five people voted for the Green Party. Pretty small sampling.
I'm just
Okay.
interested as an accountability to the group here, to this organization. You had a survey, publish the results to the members. Since the board made the selection, evidently, it's not, the vote wasn't by membership, right?
Mhm.
The endorsement vote was not by members.
That's correct. But we did base the endorsement vote on the results of this survey. So I'm looking to see what other parties were represented by name. Peace and
Mike,
Freedom, Socialist, and then a bunch of people's names.
Mike,
Yeah,
um, maybe after this meeting is concluded, we can take a look at all the emails and we could submit the complete um, results of the poll to all the people attending today's meeting.
we could
And
certainly do that.
and that would just kind of nip it in the bud and we can move
Yeah,
forward and that would make uh, you know uh, transparency complete.
that's a good idea. Although the other thing we could do is send out a blast to everybody that we invited to this meeting, which is somewhere around 15,000 people.
That would be great too.
I'll second that. This is Ilka. Great idea.
It's not a motion. We'll just
I
do it.
know, but it's a good idea.
Okay.
There's a
All
lot of
right.
people with questions in the chat. That's
Yeah.
why.
You know, on the who did you vote for? We got a bunch of votes for Butch Ware, and I'm thinking he is running. He wasn't he on the list of candidates for governor on in the pamphlet?
He was a Green Party candidate kicked off by a stupid thing by the Secretary of State's office for failing to redact his telephone number on a tax return, and he's running as a write-in candidate now for president.
Mm-hmm. Probably for governor.
For governor, sorry, for governor. But he is now doing a write-in candidacy, evidently.
Okay.
Good.
And I did notice one of the governor candidates, and this is something we can talk about at the end, this kind of stuff when we have an open forum. One of the governor candidates had written a anti-Semitic diatribe, and it made it into the pamphlet. And we had a meeting. I'm chair of the senior caucus. We had a meeting of the senior caucus, and she was our guest speaker, and she addressed that. And I'll tell you what she said at the end of the meeting if we have the time. Okay, so next up, oh, was there another hand up? There was, but I guess I took it down. Next thing up is the BOE. And the reason why we wanted to do the BOE is because it's on the ballot. And people don't know what it is, what it does, and all that kind of stuff. And they certainly don't know who to vote for, or what qualifications are required for this in order for them to do an intelligent vote. So what we've done is we've invited one of the candidates for the Board of Equalization, which has 4 districts. Is that right, Cody? 4? And
Yes, 4 districts and the controller, so it's 5 members.
5 members, 4 areas, I guess, or districts. Anyway, we've invited Cody here and to tell us about it and kind of make it so that when we vote for the Board of Equalization, it'll be an intelligent vote instead of I like the guy's name, so I'll vote for him. So go ahead, Cody.
The fuck
Do
is
you
this?
want, do you want me to do a brief self-introduction?
Yeah, you might as
Or
well,
do I- Yeah, okay.
because
Hello. It's good to see a good turnout today. It was nice to see Governor candidate Steyer. My name is Cody Petterson. I am the Chief Deputy at the California State Board of Equalization 4th District. I've been there. I started as assistant to member, and then for 2 years, or a year and a half, and then I tacked over to be supervisor of law firm here in San Diego, senior advisor for land use and environment, and then I came back as chief deputy in 2023, and for 2.5 or 3.5 years now, I've been there at the Board of Equalization. So I'm predominantly here, not so much as a candidate, but as somebody who's been at the Board of Equalization for a long time and one of only a handful of people probably across the entire state who knows sort of broadly speaking what the board does. I also came up through progressive organizing just for my credentials on that. I've been working with PDA, wow, for a decade now with Mike
Mhm.
and member of DSA. I guess PDA doesn't do membership, but Working Families Party, and came up through Party Central Committee, State Central Committee, State Executive Board of the Democratic Party, and was also president of San Diego County Democrats for Environmental Action. So I've done a lot of environmental organizing. I'm also immediate past president, San Diego Unified, where we just implemented the country's most aggressive affordable workforce housing program. We've either built or approved 2,820 units of education workforce housing. The entire state's only done 830. So we've more than we will, by the time we complete this, more than triple the entire state supply of education workforce housing. We're also the first district in the country. I just drafted and we approved the first resolution in the country of a school district condemning the war in Iran and demanding an immediate vote on war powers and the denial of such vote. We believe that it has a profound impact on our students. And if you want to ever watch the recording of that board meeting, I think we had some votes flipped by our student trustee who talked about what it's like to be a student trying to navigate their studies in the context of a war of aggression. So anyhow, that's my background. Come out of environmental work, progressive organizing, as well as tax policy here for the last 5 years. So I'm going to jump real quick into Board of Equalization. If I'm not clear, let me know. I'm going to try to speak quickly because if I don't speak quickly, you will become very sleepy because a lot of it is fairly boring work, but I'll get to what its use is from a progressive perspective ultimately. The Board of Equalization was established in the 1879 Constitution. At the time, property taxes, we did not have an income tax, so state taxes came from property taxes, and the state had a vested interest in ensuring that assessors were not underassessing their political allies or clients or family members' properties, which would, as a consequence, short the state. So the state had a very vested interest in ensuring that assessment practices were equalized. That's where the word equalization comes. It's an equalization of assessment practices across our 58 counties. It grew over the years as we got more and more little spot taxes through legislation. It got put in the Board of Equalization because it was essentially our elected tax body. And with that growth came a certain amount of corruption and insider trading and misconduct. I will speak briefly about what I'm running for. I'm running for 4th District, and I'll talk a little bit about the nature of the districts. So in 2017, after many years of controversy, the board was gutted and by Phil Ting's bill, and that put the bulk of our responsibilities in the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, which we shorten as CDTFA, and as well as the Office of Tax Appeals, OTA. And what was left with the Board of Equalization were only those tasks that were essentially stipulated in the Constitution. By and large, I will talk about those individually briefly, but by and large, those are oversight of our state assessors and taxation or property tax assessment of those assets that cross county lines and are therefore difficult for individual county assessors to assess really the value because there's a strong incentive for corporations to sort of shift where they're putting valuations, especially on conveyance that crosses county lines. We do have about 200 staff. So when I talk about the Board of Equalization, there's two separate things. There is the board itself, but it's also an agency with about 200 staff, which does a number of those. That staff does a number of things. I'll just briefly go over some of them. in order of importance, and so it'll trail off a little bit here into virtual irrelevance toward the end. But our most important thing is we assess $167 billion annually in state assessees. And so state assessed property tends to be investor-owned utilities, oil and gas utilities, energy production utilities that transmit energy, oil and gas, that transmit oil and gas over county lines, some water, railroads. We do some work on airplanes that spend time in various counties. But we generate about $3 billion in revenue on that. And on your average BOE docket, I go over the docket every month and review the docket, recommended remarks, analysis, speak to staff about if I see something that's kind of strange. Sometimes you'll see frequently the most impactful thing on your typical docket is what are called requests for reductions of unitary value. And that is large corporations, frequently, PG&E, SDG&E, large investor-owned utilities attempting to get their assessed value reduced. You can imagine these are very large corporations. So you could have tens of or hundreds of millions of dollars in requested reductions. And to answer the question, again, there are four districted members, and then a fifth member that's the controller. The four districts each have about 10 million residents and about 6.5 million voters. So they're huge. I'm running for the fourth district, which is San Diego, Imperial, Orange, Riverside, and a portion of San Bernardino. These are vast districts. We'll talk a little bit about what that means electorally, because it does set certain challenges and opportunities. So the most important thing we do is assess those. And to me, the biggest risk and the importance of having the board, if you figure out the boards, typically each board has, maybe including the board member, 3 or 4 staff members, probably certainly with the rents, maybe tops $1 million a district, plus executive director. Most of the staff, if you were to get rid of the Board of Equalization, the vast majority of those 200 staff would go to the CDTFA, or wherever you put those responsibilities would still need to be fulfilled. So one of the reasons why it hasn't been eliminated entirely is because, number one, it would have to be a constitutional amendment because it's in the Constitution, and therefore it'd have to go to a vote. And you're talking about maybe $7 million change in the budget for something that would have to go on a November ballot. So it's a very substantial commitment. And so in the end, it hasn't been done yet, although there's frequently talk about it. What I will say is, I've evolved over the years in thinking about this, but I think the most important thing that we do is hold the line on those state assessees. If a board, sometimes staff will say, like, well, for various reasons, they're correct, we should reduce it. And I call them and I make sure that that's legitimate and why they're making those findings. But if there were any pressure, like, for example, if we were the CPUC, California Public Utilities Commission, and you were all appointed by the governor instead of elected, and the governor could make a call and put pressure, you can imagine a single one. You may have someone like PG&E coming in with a request for a $600 million reduction in assessed value. I mean, you can see they have profound effects. So to me, that's our most important task. And really the main reason why it's important to have a board is that state assessed properties. The next, we do what's called letters to assessors. That's where the main role of equalization comes in. Assessors come to us and they have a question about assessment practices, and we come back with a letter to assessor, which equalizes, makes consistent assessment practices across the 58 counties. We also do assessment practices surveys on a rolling basis. What I will say is, what's unique about our state assessed properties division, the letters to assessor are going to assessors who are impacted by Prop 13. We are ultimately impacted by Prop 13, but we assess on an annual basis. So we are not directly affected by Prop 13. We're the only agency that does annual assessments every single year on largely investor-owned utilities. So we have a lot of experience in doing that annual assessment, not just assessing when something gets sold or when there's a decease and something gets transmitted to inheritors. We are doing that on an annual basis. And so that we have a lot of experience in what it would look like if you did not have a system, for example, and I'll talk about it in a second about previously Prop 15, but Prop 13 split roll reform. I'll talk about it. We also are the appellate body for the tax on insurers, as well as the alcoholic beverage tax. That rarely, honestly, comes before the board, to be honest. We also do training and certification of appraisers for assessment and certain assessment staff as well as assessment appeals board members. we can talk if somebody has a question on assessment appeals. That is something the board could definitely show leadership on. There tends to be very substantial collective action problems. You can imagine there's a lot of problems around staffing assessment appeals boards. They're very isolated in counties, especially rural counties, which have a lot of trouble even putting an assessment appeals board together and getting the staffing and the clerking and the facility space. So there's a lot of challenges around there. We also convene. I'll say two other things that are relevant. We do what's called a legal entities ownership program, which so typically things get reassessed at a county level when something gets sold, but frequently legal entities change hands without necessarily it registering with your county with your county assessor. So what we do at the board level, we do legal entities ownership program, and we go through and help determine whether legal entities have changed hands in such a manner that should cause their underlying property to also be reassessed. So we assist assessors with that. And then finally, we do the approvals. There's a lot of other little things. We don't really have time on that, but there's some smaller things. But in general, we also do the approvals for the welfare exemption, which in California currently, that's for welfare uses can be exempt from property taxes, but that currently is being used for affordable housing as well. So we are also we issue organizational clearance certificates for affordable housing, deed restricted affordable housing. So in the future, the board could take a more active role in advocating or sponsoring legislation around that. We certainly have some exposure. We do working groups and board hearings on a lot of the related topics. I just did one on workforce housing, moving beyond education workforce housing, which has enabling legislation, and thinking about what it would look like to have all agencies be able to do housing for their workforce. If you look at what we did at San Diego Unified, we did not lose the land. We used 99-year ground leases. We did not use any additional taxpayer dollars, and we were able to internalize the benefit and provide that to our staff at no more than 30% of household income. And we put it out for requests for proposals or RFPs to nonprofit and for-profit developers who said they could actually make that delta work and make it profitable in providing that housing. So it's a model in which public agencies would not hoard their land, because currently public agencies by and large hoard their property because they don't want to surplus them. But we could have a model in which actually you would not supplant the nonprofit sector, and you could actually develop that and internalize those benefits for public agencies. So that's an exciting thing. We had a hearing on that last November. We had a hearing on fire insurance, on modular homes. So we've had a series of hearings and board work groups. I will say one of the things we could definitely do a lot better is follow through. So we have a ledge director, but in general, the board, I think, should be much more active when it identifies things that can be done, that its working groups have developed. It should actually, as a board and board members, not only endorse those proposals, instruct our legislative staff to sponsor them, but also we as board members should be much more active in terms of lobbying for those reforms. Because many times the BOE is the only agency that's like a clearinghouse for all this information coming from various counties throughout the state. We could work on a lot. There's a lot of recommendations. Yeah, Sam's a good guy. He's endorsed by Our Revolution as well. I'm also endorsed by Our Revolution, and Sam's a good guy. There's a lot of stuff. If somebody has questions about assessment appeals, I won't talk about it now because I'm going to run out of time here. But if you have questions, there are improvements that the board could help lead at for assessment appeals boards, and with modernization, particularly small counties. I don't know who here is in small counties, but small counties typically don't have the economies of scale to modernize, to implement best practices, to staff their boards of appeals. So there's a lot of work that the Board of Equalization can do in terms of advocating for and sponsoring legislation that's supportive of small counties in relation to their assessment and appeals. Let me close by saying, right now you're thinking, why are you running for this office? This has very few public-facing roles. My whole career has been trying to find, fulcrums, leverage points where you could make dramatic change in a given agency. At the county, we implemented what's essentially SB 743 implementation, which is essentially an urban growth boundary. It was the most dramatic reduction in growth in the backcountry and sprawl and leapfrog development reduction that the county has ever implemented. We saw that early ahead of time, and I knew we could do that at the Board of Education. We were able to do affordable housing for our staff, which was a big lift for us. And here, I'm doing the same thing here with this run. I'm the only candidate who actually understands what the Board of Equalization does, has a deep experience in doing it. But beyond that, I helped organize in San Diego. I was on the organizing committee for Prop 15, which was our split roll back in 2020. That was supported $19 million from CTA, $19 million from SEIU, and then the rest from private philanthropy. About $60 million in progressive funds went to supporting it, about $70 million of bad real estate, awful corporate real estate funds. And that would have generated, at the time, 10 to $15 billion. Now it's probably closer to $15 billion of additional revenue. 2/3 of the revenue lost to Prop 13 is lost to commercial and industrial. And so that's really where the lion's share of the lost revenue to the public sector it comes from. And Prop 13 is frankly, at the residential levels, pretty built into our tax system. I mean, we have very progressive income tax, in part as a counterweight to, I mean, it's evolved for so long. I do think residential Prop 13 reform would be a very, very challenging proposition. But split roll is I think it's the right thing to do. If we do not tax that right now in San Diego, we're taxing brutal, like Balboa Park parking and beach parking. I mean, just nickel and diming working people and the things that bring us together as a community, which is a disaster. I was just on a walk yesterday for Measure A, which is our empty house and second home tax proposal. So we need to generate the revenue, and if we don't generate it on commercial industrial property of corporations, we're going to have to do it off the backs of working people. So number one, revenue. At this point, it would probably generate about $15 billion of additional revenue. With Prop 98, at least 40% of that would go to education, the rest to social services, which is why the teachers and SEIU has been supportive of it. I will just say, somebody asked earlier about exemptions. The initial Prop 15, I mean, this is 2020. There's been a lot of inflation in real estate values. The initial Prop 15, as I recall, had a $500,000 exemption. That kind of seems laughable at this point, just because property values have inflated so much in terms of commercial properties. We do not want to target it in such a way that you're forcing mom and pops, out of their, very small commercial property or potentially impacting if you had like a rental property. We don't want that. So my guess is there would be somewhere at this point in time something about and again, it's not my measure. I'm just anticipating, but it would probably have, if you extrapolate it out, it would probably have somewhere. We're talking about $2 to $5 million exemption, so you're not hitting sort of mom and pops, working families that happen to have accrued something that would be classified as an industrial commercial property. Again, don't quote me on that necessarily, but I'm just extrapolating out from what the prior exemption was. But to me, and here's the most important thing, the revenue is important, but far more important than the revenue of a Prop 13 commercial industrial reform is we are in a housing crisis, and a substantial portion of the housing crisis is because of Prop 13 commercial industrial incentives. The reason why we have already upzoned, for instance, I'll give you an example in San Diego. We have upzoned massive quantities of what is called arterial areas. So main thoroughfares. If you're from San Diego, you can name, Claremont Mesa, Balboa, El Cajon. I mean, these are LA. I mean, any city you're in, you know what the thoroughfares are. By and large, they've been upzoned and they are not being developed. Why are they not being developed? A substantial reason why they're not being developed is because people are exploiting the Prop 13 commercial industrial benefit, which is no more than 1% of the value and cannot increase in assessed value any more than 2% a year or when it's sold. So there's very clear data that the longer you own a property, the less likely it is to be redeveloped because the tax benefit of Prop 13 becomes so extravagant for commercial development. And they frequently never sell. Like I say, the legal entities may change proportional hands, but the property itself never necessarily sells. So as a consequence, you could be paying, if you've had it for a long time, or a corporation has had it for a long time. I mean, Disneyland's your perfect example of this, but these are thousands and thousands of commercial industrial properties. They are fixed in 1977 property values with a 2% inflator. That's called your factored base year, is your base year plus a 2% inflator. But property's been inflating at 5 to 7%. So that delta just grows and grows and grows. And at this point, you could have a property whose factored base year, you bought it for, let's say, $200,000. It's increased 2% annually. You've had it for 30 years. That could be 10 times, it could be worth 10 times what you're paying in taxes. So at that point, it's impossible to incentivize a corporation to actually improve it because the tax benefit is so extravagant. For them to actually improve it, they'd right out of the gate have to think about what that tax consequence would be. So it's a reason why in these arterials, it's a reason why the legislature and cities have been going after single family. It's kind of a problem, honestly. They're going after single family zoning in areas that don't have transit, that don't have jobs, that are inaccessible, and they're not necessarily reducing GHG emissions, and they're creating traffic, and they're creating a lot of political hostility, and they're not getting big numbers because they're residential areas. Why are we doing that? It's because we've already upzoned the arterial and it's not being developed because the Prop 13 benefit's so extravagant. So you can imagine you would unleash a lot of potential to develop. And furthermore, you could come back around and through the legislature offer incentives where they could preserve a portion of their Prop 13 benefit so long as they developed in a way that was consistent with what the public needs, which is to say mixed income housing on top of ground floor retail, close to jobs, close to amenities. So for me, split roll, what happened last time is a lot of the assessors, the vast majority of assessors came because their donors are all commercial real estate. All the assessors came out and said, we cannot do this. We cannot staff up in time to do this. Had we had a Board of Equalization at the top that had 3 votes to endorse a Prop 13 split roll, we could have, from the very top, had informational hearings, had working groups that said, no, this can be done, actually. Here's how it can be done. And we could champion it. At the time, we did not have that. In the future, the biggest use I see for this Board of Equalization is actually to champion progressive causes. It can be improved in terms of internal, small improvements in the way the Board of Equalization works. But the reason I'm running for this thing is to do big things and to leverage the authority of this board to actually above all else, to get a split roll pass. So that's a little about Board of Equalization and a glancing way about my candidacy, and I'll take any questions.
I'll ask real quick a question, Cody. I'm lucky. I get to live in the city. This is Ilka Weston, and I'm a part of PDA-CA. And I know what a commitment you've been to the environment. And that just warms my heart because we're not taking care of our environment. And solar panels are a way for people to save money, et cetera. And, the property tax solar exclusion for rooftop solar, it has a sunset. And now homeowners are installing solar panels and they're subject to costs, property tax assessments. And I'm not sure what else might be a challenge with that, but I can pretty much assure that everybody in this room cares about the environment, cares about California. So what would you do on the BOE? Because I trust you to reverse the sunset and make the change.
Good question. So just to clarify what her question is, there was a new construction exclusion passed by the legislature that sunsets January 1st, 2027. You have to have the improvement made by December 31st of this year. And it's not an exemption, so it's an exclusion, which means it basically excludes that from being assessed independently until there's a reassessment based on a sale value or something like that. There's something called property tax assessment regressivity. You can look it up online. Beyond just Prop 13 and our property tax system, I'm glad somebody mentioned, and maybe it was even Tom Steyer, about rental. I think it was Tom Steyer about rental tax incentive or tax rebates for renters that are comparable to the benefits that property owners receive. So in general, property tax regressivity, there's a lot of sources of regressivity in our property tax system, one of which is improvements, like large substantial improvements they don't trigger a full reassessment, but they should be assessed as on their own value. In general, they do not get reassessed unless there's a permit that's pulled, but a lot of working people's homes, even if they own them, do not get remodeled substantially all the time. And they get sold far more often than wealthy folks' homes, just at a statistical level. So in general, if you pulled a permit on a solar panel, Or if through aerial photography or whatever counties are using now to assess, and they could see you now put a solar panel in, they could technically, if it weren't for this exclusion, they could technically assess the value, the additive value of that having that solar panel on the roof. This legislation excluded that from being reassessed until such a time as you sell the home, and then that increased value gets factored in. So that would sunset. This has come up from time to time over the last year. Obviously, people are very nervous about this. I was a strong proponent of retaining net energy metering 2.0. Net energy metering 3.0 has really, honestly, savagely impacted the rooftop solar industry. It's really a catastrophe. And that was the goal of it, was actually to kill the rooftop solar industry. And the investor-owned utilities were able to achieve that. It doesn't get you any cheaper energy because eventually you're going to have to spend that money on transmission and distribution. But that was a collusion between, unfortunately, certain labor partners and the investor-owned utilities who had a community of interest on that issue. So in general, it's the incentive or the payback period for rooftop solar has dramatically, I think, probably doubled over the last since net energy meeting. And actually, Sandy Unified, when I was on Sandy Unified, we made sure that we got 72 permits in under the deadline for net energy meeting 2.0. So Sandy Unified is actually benefiting from that. But I am fully supportive of extending that exclusion. Talk to your legislators. I don't know if any legislators are currently carrying any bills to that effect, but that is certainly at risk, and that will sunset in December 31st of this year.
That is a great question, a great answer. Thank you. And I saw something in the by Robert Getzla. Robert, do you just want me to ask the question for you, or would you like to unmute and ask a question of Cody? What he basically said is, can we do something about the private equity firms that are buying up homes and turning them into permanent rentals? He has more information. I know of a group of houses that have been purchased by private equity and have been sitting vacant for years, several years.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, look, we're going to need an all the above strategy on this. I was part of the Coastal Coalition here, which fought Airbnb, maybe with Barbara Bree at City Council, maybe 5 years ago now. That was a brutal fight. Airbnb rolled in and threatened or got the signatures to force the city to go back and soften that legislation up. Like I say, I was with DSA yesterday at Alliance San Diego walking for. We had a press conference and walk for our Measure A now, which is vacant homes tax or second homes tax. Look, I mean, it's the same story across the line. I mean, these are corporate interests that have our democracy under siege. And there are times when I have a hopeless feeling because over the last decade, I've been at this, like many of you have been at this for decades, and to see corporations and now with AI and it's getting pretty scary. And private equity, obviously, the financialization of our economy and particularly of human rights like housing is profoundly concerning. And I would support any legislation, and certainly to the extent that it had any even ancillary impact on the Board of Equalization, or I felt like it was within our purview, I would certainly bring it to a vote at the Board of Equalization and advocate on that and endorse that and use our staff to lobby to the extent that it was in any way relevant to our purview.
Okay, anybody else have a question for Cody? If so, raise your electronic hand.
Yeah.
Bill, where's the electronic hand? Yeah.
If you go
You can just-
under at the bottom, if
You
you
can just say it out loud at this point.
Yeah, you might as well.
Yeah, that's true too.
Just real quick, if I may just interject, a couple of people came in late, and I want to note to them that everything that they've missed by arriving late, this meeting will be posted on our YouTube page, and you'll be able to replay it and see what you missed, including Tom Steyer's message to us.
Of course, our first choice will be to hear Cody again.
Yes. That was a really good educational for everybody. I mean, there were things that you mentioned that I didn't even know.
Okay, but we had someone who was about to ask a question.
Who is?
Hello? Hello,
Oh,
can I ask a question?
Please
Please
do.
do.
Hi, you know, I'm also very interested in the split roll idea, and I did a little work with Lenny
Clapping?
Goldberg.
Yeah, or
Um,
raise hand right there.
and hello?
Please proceed.
Yeah, so
Oh.
he has this idea of doing local commercial property documentation projects where you take, the property's current property value
You
compared
just
to
lowered your
what they're
hand.
paying for
I'll get it
taxes.
back on.
And the difference between those two numbers is pretty important. And, I worked in Boston on a split roll campaign long ago. And one of the things we did is we had what we called a dirty dozen, where we had the, 10 dozen worst taxpayers. I think that, for split roll to work, if we had that local dimension to the campaign where you could say, hey, you see that Chevron station? Those guys are paying, a third of what they should be paying in taxes. Or, if you had those local lists, and maybe the teachers could do this on a local level, but I think that would really be helpful for the campaign. He sort of talked about it as though it was this commercial property documentation project. And if we could do that locally, I think that might be helpful for the campaign.
That's fascinating. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not, we don't have any legislation per se yet, but toward your point, I think I mean, I'm not a huge fan of AI. I've never used AI for anything on Facebook. I mean, Gmail, Google tries to force it on me, so I do catch it as a glance, but I try not to use it. But there are things which, to the extent that AI can be used in ways that do not supplant human labor, I'm open to considering that. And I think this is one of those examples where you could very certainly enter large data models in terms of what current prevailing property taxes were versus, and then go through and determine what the actual, for example, what the Zillow value or what the, or what the comparable sales value of surrounding homes were. I don't think that that would be that challenging. And you could then get a sort of aggregate, a large scale, but then also a very granular view of what it actually looks like in practice to have commercial properties being dramatically underassessed, what that means both for revenue but also for land use. I think that there's definitely, I think it's a great idea.
All right, Dr. Richard Brook, you're up.
Thank you. You alluded to the Public Utility Commission, and you can cut me off if this is not an appropriate a question given your area of expertise. But so for all of us that own solar panels, a number of years ago, there was a computation of reimbursement from for us Southern Cal Edison based on kilowatt hours generated. And then, from what I understand, the governor replaced a significant number of people on the Public Utilities Commission, and there was some effort to try to incentivize a lot of people to put solar panels on. And to do that, you can tell me if I'm wrong about any of this, but to do that, all of a sudden we saw all of us who had solar panels, we saw our electric bills just skyrocket. And if we talked to the Southern Cal Edison, and they said, well, we basically have reduced your credit by 50 to 75%. And so what would happen is you'd still maintain your monthly low electric bill, but you were still tethered to obligatorily to Southern Cal Edison for us. And so you got these charges at the end of the year of like $1,000 or $1,500, all reflecting that, for lack of a better way to describe it, that rate adjustment based on kilowatt made that you generated back to the grid. And I was just wondering if there's is that something you're familiar with? I know electricity prices are going to go up in general, but is that something that you address? Is that something that we can somehow do something about?
Yeah. So what I would say is, I come out of environmental organizing. This is not necessarily the purview of the Board of Equalization. One of the challenges with the California Public Utilities Commission is that all of its members are appointed by the governor. And as a consequence, if you have a governor who is fairly close personally, professionally to the investor-owned utilities industry, which we
We
have
have,
now.
yeah.
You do get some votes that are not great out of CPUC. And in the case, for example, I think I'm not familiar exactly with the rebate you're talking about, but what happened with Net Energy Meeting 3.0 is you basically had various, to my mind, disingenuous arguments about why charging. So when you put the energy in Net Energy Meeting 2.0, and this is very, very general terms, you are now with Net Energy Meeting 3.0, you're being paid. You put it in if you put it in, you get wholesale rates, and if you bring it back out, and if you buy it back, buy it back for retail rates. So it's dramatically reduced the incentive. Whereas before Net Energy Meeting 2.0, you were getting essentially, and this is again, there are some details on this thing, but you were essentially getting retail. You were putting it at retail and receiving it back at retail.
That's right. That's correct.
And so
Yes.
Net Energy Meeting 3.0, like I say, dramatically, I think it doubled the payback time period for rooftop solar. And really, that was ultimately the intention. There were a lot of ways that you could have made something like Net Energy Meeting 2.0 more equitable. And you could have on-bill financing. There's various mechanisms. But the truth is, the investor-owned utilities want to get rid of rooftop solar. It's just taking customers away from them ultimately. And that's not the mode they don't want that in the future. So, and there was a massive, I mean, the solar coalition was huge. And in the end, the power of the investor and utilities is just so, I mean, Tom Steyer spoke to a little bit today about how much money they could put in these races. I mean, it's massive.
It is. So Eloise is next to ask a question. So Eloise can unmute. And then the next person after that will be our own board member, Dorothy. So you can unmute, Eloise.
Excuse me, Dorothy is not a board member. She was a former member of our steering committee, but she's still
She's still
Real
fabulous.
Beloved. She's still
She's
beloved.
still fabulous. I love her. So
Thank
Eloise,
you.
you're next.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Mike does not love me.
Okay, so you touched on this, but so I put my question in the chat. I inherited and own a duplex, and the rent from that pays my mortgage. So I have a decent income. And how do you protect somebody like me and protect renters? Because I lost $30,000 in rent because I could not get a woman out. It took me it took me about 2 years to get her evicted.
Yikes. Yeah, those are I obviously hear those nightmare scenarios. All I can say is in anticipation is that the detail. I think it's important when we think about designing tax measures that we tax general principle is tax the bad. You never want to tax the good. So to me, you need to target in such a way that it hits those parties that actually have the capacity to pay. And you have to go after where the money is. We have a highly unequal society. We know where the money is. And if you're not willing to tax where the money is, you're just going to put more and more burdens on working people in the form of, nickel and diming them with parking meters. Where there's no parking meters are fine if there's an alternative green solution like a transit, but if there's no green solutions, you're just taxing working people. Balboa Park in our town is a perfect example. There's no way a working person could get to Balboa Park on a bus in a reasonable amount of time. So you're just taxing the good. With regard to what you're saying, look, we don't want to, can't anticipate what any particular legislation would look like, a particular split roll legislation. But like I said, I mean, I think you're talking about something around, and this is ballpark. My guess is it would be somewhere around $3 to $5 million of exemption. I don't know about like, I certainly would not anticipate it impacting like a duplex where you're just renting half the house or something. But again, I can't say that definitively, but I certainly would not want to hit seniors who are, paying their basic bills to survive in an environment where there's inadequate, we're losing our pensions, our defined benefit pensions, and a lot of seniors are struggling. We don't want to hit people that are not in a position to pay. And so, to your point, Dorothy, I think there would certainly have to be an exemption that's reasonable relative to the economy.
That's Eloise.
That's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eloise. Pardon me. Yeah. Yeah.
But Dorothy, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. What is your question?
All right, I just wanted to give if you're have the Southern California Edison and you're getting payment shock at the end of the year, what you can do is look on page 4 of your bill. I'm in the same situation. Look on page 4 and pay what it says on page 4, because that's what you really owe. And then you won't have that payment shock. If you're paying automatically, they won't do that. You have to actually write them a check or go online and pay it in order to pay your full amount every month, so you don't get stuck with $1,500 or $2,000 at the end of the year. And my understanding of the split roll is they're really going after huge buildings, commercial buildings like the AT&T building in LA and stuff, buildings that have been owned by the same corporation for decades, but the owners of the corporations change. So there's no property tax reassessment because the building is still owned by ABC Corporation, even though the people who own ABC Corporation are different.
Mhm.
Yes, that's correct. That's who you want to target. I mean, yeah, we don't want to target mom and pops. That's not where we're at. Yeah, agreed. And I'll also say, I mean, I was the founding chair of Public Power San Diego, and which we set up initially as like a splinter from the Better Franchise Coalition when SDG&E's franchise was up. And we fought the good fight. I think we slowed that down by 8 months or something. But in the end, the only answer here is publicly owned utilities on the order like SMUD or LA, or that's in the long term. You have to break the power of, the tech billionaires, the investor-owned utilities, your private equity vampires.
I don't know if you see, there's somebody, I don't know if he can ask a question. He's in our thread. He's R. Hubber. He's saying he lives in his truck and he's a native of California. And it's true, Social Security does not cover things. How would that affect the B? I mean, I don't even know. So is there something the BOE could do for people? Is there
Well,
a
like I
tax
say, I mean, in
related to
general,
that?
BOE does not have public-facing duties anymore,
Yeah.
unless you're happen to be an investor-owned utility member of the public. But we do, for example, in that case, I mean, we do, like I say, we do the approvals, we do the assessment and approvals, or the analysis and approval of organizational clearance certificates for affordable housing to be exempt from property taxes. But by and large, and we do, there are situations in which our letters to assessors elucidate certain elements that could have impacts on certain sort of like taxable benefits that working people are receiving. But in general, the BOE does not have, and if we were to help champion a split roll, we would obviously be generating revenue for social services and public education that would have an impact on working people, in particular on people that are experiencing homelessness. But by and large, BOE is not at this point public facing. We do have a taxpayer advocate, but beyond that, yeah.
Judy?
Or a taxpayers' rights advocate, I should say, is a formal title.
Your question, Judy?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate this greatly. I have 1180 square foot home and I need a new HVAC.
Mhm.
And there is no state rebate refund. And Trump abolished any kind of federal rebate. And now, when you look at SEER, and when you talk to the HVAC companies, the high performance units are very, very expensive. Um, and I need, maybe a 3.5 ton condenser furnace, and they're quoting anywhere from $15,000 to $17,000. So I wanted to ask you, um, what do I do? I mean, is my alternative to go to my state senator, who happens to be a Republican, and
Then I would not go to them.
I'm going to wait till after this election. I hope they vote for the Democrat, Dr. Tate.
Yeah,
So that,
I'm a big believer in HVAC retrofits. At Santa Unified, we put tens of millions of dollars in HVAC retrofits for all of our sites, 176 sites. I'm chagrined to see what the feds have done in relation to no longer funding HVAC improvements. I would definitely support any, for example, if we had if we saw a bill like that, I would be eager to bring it before the board and endorse it, and do whatever we could to take part in advocating for it and getting it across the line. I think that is an HVAC investment is something that not only pays for itself fiscally, but in terms of the environmental and health impacts is dramatic, you know.
yes, absolutely. And so it's very important, that our vote counts right now, because we've got two Democrats in my district running against two, the state senator is Republican in my district, and the assembly person is Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to get any help. So I hope the Democrats win.
Yeah, yeah. You and me both
And
from your
just
mouth
to
to
let
God's ears.
everybody know, I've put a link into Cody's, because I was going to ask Cody. I put a link to Cody's website right there on the front of his page. You can go to the donor page if you're able to donate any money, even if it's $10, obviously, that is how we get the right people into office. The Board of Equalization, we need Cody. Without Cody in that position, they won't be influenced.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you, Elka. I see a couple questions. I will just say
Yeah.
very briefly,
Let's
one of the unique
go.
things, one of the unique things, one
Chuck
of the
is
unique,
up next.
There's people that have their background not turned off.
yeah, I would just say one of the unique things about this race is it is so large. Part of the reason I ran is because I'm chief deputy. I have a very strong ballot designation. I'm
Yeah.
equalization board member deputy. I have a strong ballot statement. We were able to block the other candidates at the Dem convention. But with 6.5 million voters, I'm running against good people, but certainly more moderate than I am. I'm running against I think it's fair to say fairly moderate state legislator up on the border between Orange County and LA, and a Democrat, but he's the other candidate, Democratic candidate, is the Republican assessor's special assistant, and I'm running as well against him. But the reality is, with 6.5 million voters, money doesn't get you very far. We will be doing, I have $1.2 million in text queued up here, which is obnoxious, but it's part of the way we communicate with voters. I am still fundraising, although it's not, I mean, we understand the fundamentals are going to drive this race, but I am not going to leave anything on the field. So to the extent that anybody's able to contribute, that would be great. I have a good feeling about this race given my strengths. Veronica and then Richard.
Hey, man, me.
You skipped Chuck. He was
Chuck,
Oh,
first.
sorry,
yeah,
Chuck.
Chuck.
Okay, sorry,
Oh,
Chuck.
yeah, okay. Anyway, first of all, my son, I first came to see my son, so I just got here. So I'm sorry about that. But bad timing.
I'll start
but
from the
it
beginning.
was. But anyway, but in Southern California Edison, somebody called about California 50, is that what it was, or something? About they wanted to look at my bill because Edison was double charging. Do you remember what problem there was? There's some rule got passed, and so they called, and I thought it was a scam call at first. So I never got to see him, but shortly thereafter, my Southern California Edison bill dropped in half. It was like $900 last year, and then it was 500, they said it was because of the kilowatt hours, my usage, and so then but there's no reason that you should have changed. Does anybody know anything what they're doing? Why would suddenly my bill drop by half? Which one?
I don't know. You look sharp. I can't imagine you're not doing your laundry more than you typically do, or showers. You look great.
I'm the physical therapist coming to see you tomorrow.
I don't have an answer. I'm sorry, Chuck. I don't have an answer to that. I'm not familiar.
Chuck, if you want to send whatever you have in to us, we could forward it to Cody. If it does have anything to do with the Board of Equalization. I think Veronica was next.
Wait, before you go, I think that I heard something. This is addressed to Chuck and everybody about Southern California Edison getting sued by their customers for being double billed, and they ended up having to give that money back. And if I'm right, that might account for you getting a reduction in your bills. So, Veronica?
Thank you. Yes, I live in a different district. I'm a renter. So how is your office important to me? And
I'm sorry, what was the first intro? What was your
I live in a different district, a different county, San Mateo, and I'm a renter.
Okay.
So how is your office important to me? And how can I talk about it to other people that are in a similar position, or even homeowners?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The ways that the Board of Equalization impacts people's lives, your average taxpayer constituents' lives, is pretty indirect. That's just, I mean, you may have somebody who's giving you a campaign pitch and tells you differently. I've been there for 5 years. I can tell you, I know, broadly speaking, what our roles are. The way we impact a homeowner typically is if the letters to assessors we issue have a collateral impact on the assessment of their homes, in terms of the decisions we're making and the recommendations we're making to assessors. If you have property developments that are for affordable housing or other charitable purposes, that certainly could have an impact on normal people. But by and large, the decisions we make, the biggest impact you will never see, because they're in relation to us holding the line on making sure that investor-owned utilities, that $167 billion of investor-owned utilities that we assess on an annual basis, that it's actually being assessed at full real value and not underassessed. I mean, you can imagine, I'll just give you an example. If you had a 5-person Republican board, I assume there would be plenty of times where they not just where they voted from the dais, but where they sort of indicated to staff. I mean, staff in general make decisions, and I'm a school board member. Staff in the end are not going to bring to the board things that the board is going to, trash them on. So the staff is always thinking out of the corner of their mind what the board is going to do in relation to something. So it's not just that if you didn't have a board that held the line on ensuring that investor-owned utilities pay their fair share, staff would know that, and they would know that if they did do those assessments in a way that fully attributed the proper responsibility for funding our government on those investor-owned utilities per the law, that they would not be backed up by their board. So then they would, obviously start to take a much more permissive view in terms of those reductions in assessed value. So realistically speaking, having an elected board that it has a value when it's committed to both fairness, transparency, but also generating the revenue that the legislature's indicated it needs to generate from those investor-owned utilities. So that's the biggest impact, is in terms of our decision making in relation to investor-owned utilities and assessing their property. But it's indirect. I mean, I'm not going to lie and tell you it's not indirect. It's very much indirect.
Richard, you're back? Question?
I take seconds. Let's do it. We got
Hi,
plenty of
Cody.
mashed
This
potatoes.
is Richard again, and thank you for the opportunity to ask a second question. I was just curious if you are following Steyer's campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I ask you that is because, I mean, it's so germane to what we're talking about today. And he certainly laid out a number of things that he feels that he can have a direct impact. And then this whole question about the Public Utility Commission and the members that have been placed on that recently, or not so recently, but what are their terms? Is that something, can they be removed and replaced by let's say, potentially by a Steyer administration? And I guess the only last part of this is that the things that he's proposing, are they, even for a governor in the state, are they realistic? Because a lot of us are voting for him based on his campaign quote unquote promises.
Oh man, that's a big question. What I would say broadly, I'm going to share on this thing right now my endorsement of Steyer from a couple of weeks ago. And it was based largely on can it be achieved? You know, I was a White House intern for Bill Clinton back in the day,
Yeah,
97.
interesting.
I was came in, got re-excited about the party with Bernie, and I've been at it for a decade now, pretty much full time. And I'll just be honest, I have a lot of doubts about whether or not our political system is built to implement the kind of dramatic change that's necessary to get us on the right track. So I don't know if it's pessimistic, but I'm very concerned about the ability of our system to deliver the change in direction we need. However, if it's going to be done, it's going to be someone like Steyer, because really
Right.
the most profound challenge we have is the role of money. Overwhelmingly, the biggest challenge. If you look at the state legislature, I would not, frankly, run for the state legislature. It's, the power of the third house to determine outcomes with the money is just brutal. The campaign finance is so loose in you get direct corporate donations. I mean, it is just awful. So, I was originally for Betty Yee, and then she dropped out. No, I was originally for Tony Atkins, and then she dropped out, and then Betty Yee, and she dropped out. So my record's not great on this, but I think relative, can Steyer do it? We'll see, but can anybody else do it? I don't see anybody else with any chance of doing it. So Steyer,
Right.
in relation to both split roll, which he supports, and the billionaire's tax, which I support, even though this particular billionaire's tax I don't love. I don't think it's perfectly very well designed, frankly, and the process that developed isn't great. But yes, I'm supportive of billionaire's tax. The thing, and he actually specifically talked about the California Public Utilities Commission. And yes, the answer to your question on that is he will have the power to replace that whole CPUC, which is incredible. Because the truth is, when you really get down to brass tacks, you cannot reform our energy system or our investor-owned utility system without everybody's enthralled to CPUC. I mean, that guaranteed return on equity is just savage. So yeah, I mean, I would say I don't know if he can do it, but he's the only person who's proposing to actually do it. So
No,
Well,
thank
Cody,
you. And I'm just glad, Betty is with him all the way. And so
yeah,
I thought
yeah,
that in and of itself was a terrific endorsement.
yeah, agreed.
and Tony Atkins, she endorsed him as well.
Oh, I didn't
That's
know
right.
that.
Tony
Thank
did
you
too. Yep.
for saying
Yep.
that.
Yeah. Well, she dropped out quickly, and she
Yes, she
dropped
did.
out because she said that she was polling low. She was a committed Democrat to the government, to us electing our governor, and I found that to be very respectful.
Well, and I'll just say what Tony always said is to really move the governor's race. I mean, this will give you an idea. To really move even my race, which is a fourth of the state, 6.5 million voters. I raised maybe for my school board race maybe $100,000, $100,000. Teachers put in, and other labor unions put in another 300, 400,000 to move a district of 200,000, maybe I don't know, 3 percentage points. My board of equalization race alone is 50 times bigger than that. So you can see, I mean, it's just staggeringly, and multiply that by 4, that's how big the state is. Tony always said that in order to really move that state, you would have to have about, maybe to play ball at all, $30 million. There is no way you're getting $30 million to run for governor from mom and pops. It's just inconceivable. You're going to big, large donors, and even at $9,000-$10,000 a pop, that's still a lot of donors. So it is a brutal. The role of money in our politics is borderline insurmountable. You know.
I have some information about Betty E that people might find interesting who are concerned about her. As you know, PDA-CA, if you read any of our blasts, PDA-CA originally endorsed Betty E. When she dropped out of the race because she couldn't get into double-digit support in the polls, the next day, she endorsed Tom, and the day after that, she got put on Tom Steyer's campaign staff, and which means that if he wins, she will probably be on his regular gubernatorial staff because she has, the advantage, I guess, or the experience of being, in the, and having a constitutional position. So I think
Tom
Betty
Steyer
is going to be fine, is my bottom line. Now, I don't see any more questions. So
can I just say something? I actually asked Tom Steyer. We were all standing around at the women's caucus at the convention.
Oh, it's I know who it is.
Dorothy, yeah.
No, it's Dorothy.
I asked Tom Steyer, I said, I'm supporting Betty, but you're my second choice. And if you become governor, will you put Betty in your administration? And he said, I love Betty. She will be high up in my administration. So that's from the horse's mouth there.
Great news.
Yeah. So what we might want to do is kind of phase down this portion of the meeting because number 3 on the agenda is the special guest speaker. Well, guess what? We already had the special guest speaker. So, and we're lucky to get him for 10 minutes, I think. But the next thing after that on the agenda is an open forum. And it's something we'd like to try. I've seen it happen in other groups where it works. So we'll try the same thing. If there's anything, and of course, Cody, you're welcome to hang around.
I just want to say thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate you bearing with me.
I appreciate you spending the time with us. I really do. And giving us an idea of whether, we don't, the Board of Equalization person in our district is important and they need a lot of knowledge. And when we go to vote for someone to fill it, what we need to be looking for is people who have the kind of experience and the kind of knowledge that Cody has. So on that, why don't we remove the spotlight? And if you have something that is primary election related, raise your hand and we'll start a discussion. And what we'll do is we'll go in the order of hands raised. You may want to respond to something someone else said. But unfortunately, the way we're doing it, you may have to wait here for a chance. So I see what's, I don't want to mess up your name, but is it Murtaza?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Murtaza.
Oh, okay.
No, I only
What's
heard
your
part
comment?
I only heard part of Steyer's presentation. And I think somebody noted that there were new things that they didn't know about before. I'd be curious if somebody could summarize just what new things did you learn about Steyer in the few minutes that we heard from him today.
Who are you addressing? Just
anybody in the audience.
Anybody who wants to raise their hand and ask.
Yeah.
So of the 2 people whose hands are up, does anyone want to respond to that, or anyone prepared to respond to that? Or Virginia, did you raise your hand to respond?
Not to respond. I have a question.
Okay, well, we'll go in order.
Or Mike, if you had any comments to share on what he
Okay.
said.
Okay. Sort of repeat the highlights of your question, and keeping
Oh,
in mind that I am no genius on this. So go
okay.
ahead.
You're genius enough.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, just to summarize, I think people noted that we learned some new things in what he presented. If there's just anything from what you heard that you could share about what Sire said, that was interesting.
I would say if I were to share something about what he said, is that I first dealt with Tom Steyer's, must have been 8 years ago, and found him. I had a meeting with him that was supposed to last about a half an hour. It ended up lasting over an hour. And he was relating to me what he wanted to see in the Democratic Party. He wasn't running for anything yet. And what I was very much impressed back then, 8 years ago. Now, fast forward 8 years and a couple hours ago, I hear him I hear him saying things that shows me he is sincere about what he's talking about, because it's the exact kind of things he was talking about 8 years ago. This isn't somebody that sat around and go, gee, I would like to be governor. I'll make some stuff up so that I can get the vote of the progressives. So that's what I'm coming away with this. Okay.
I
So,
love that, but real quick, Mike,
you
um,
know,
Nathan just posted something. Oh, we do have some people with their hands up, but Nathan just posted something from Riverside County. Can you give us some more information about
yeah.
it?
Okay. Nathan, go ahead. Unless you don't want to.
Sorry, my internet is.
And I agree, Tom's the way to go, obviously.
People to come for it. It's it's for the nonprofit that I work for. But it's an open forum. All three candidates were invited, and all three candidates are on the ballot, and it's a way for PDA members to get informed about their choices on the ballot in Merced County for judge.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, shall we? Thanks, Nathan.
We have Michael Brackney, Virginia Arnold, and Dorothy in that order.
Okay, but I was going to say that just let people know that Nathan is one of our office of PDA.
I didn't want to say.
He's the his communications director. Is that right, Nathan?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Michael Brackney.
Thanks, Mike. As a staunch Steyer supporter, I have a comment and a question about Katie Porter. I really loved her conduct in the Congress. She, with her whiteboard, she really was able to ask tough questions of people. But I was very upset at her running for the Senate because it divided the progressive vote, and she didn't have a chance of winning. And I'm wondering if anyone has approached her now to see if she would consider, given the poll results, if she would consider bowing out on behalf of Steyer.
I know I haven't. I can't imagine her bowing out, though.
I sent a message to her office, and I did not word it that way, even though I know that's how we feel. Complimenting how she handled the diabolical behavior of Republicans judging her as a mother. And that was totally out of line in the debate. And then I said a number of people have backed out of the race. How would you, Katie, not knowing who would receive it? And the person said that Katie is committed and believes she can get to the top two. That's all I got back. And
that's what I was afraid of, but I thank you for that comment, Ilka.
No problem, Michael.
Okay. Virginia?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I really enjoy these meetings and I love that I'm able to ask some questions. And I've learned a lot today. Does I'm clear on people I want to vote for in certain areas, but I'm not clear on lieutenant governor and treasurer and insurance commissioner. And I'm wondering if the group can recommend, oh, if anyone knows anything about any of these candidates that
Is,
are.
you know what, Cody and I had a talk about Fiona Ma earlier, and I believe Mike has a lot of information about Fiona Ma. I know I casted my vote for Fiona Ma, and I noticed somebody just mentioned Oliver Ma, and he's polling so low. My concern was to look at the top 3 polls, and Fiona Ma has extreme amount of experience, but I'm not the expert on this. I know that I'm impressed with what I've seen. I'm impressed with what leadership that I believe in, like Mike Thaller, as well as Cody Petterson and others that are true progressives feel. So, Mike, I think Mike would have a good answer on this.
Well, right now I'm looking to see how I voted. Uh,
No judgment.
yeah, okay. Let's see. For lieutenant governor, yes, I did vote for Fiona Ma. And the reason was because I've known her for a long time in the party as a worker for the party and a very nice person. And she has experience in the upper echelons, I guess you'd say, of the constitutional officers. And I think she'd make a good, really good lieutenant governor.
Okay.
What else? We've got
I marked Fiona Ma, Oliver Ma, and Janelle Kelman as with question marks.
in under lieutenant governor, you mean?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I struck out all the Republicans, of course.
Well, what about Michael Tubbs?
Michael Tubbs. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
I'm
anyone knows
voting
anything
for Michael
about.
Tubbs. He's a really good progressive, and I want
Yeah.
someone who's working for people, not just the party. So,
okay,
I guess that's radical.
And right now I'm putting in the chat the Cal Matters governor race for California lieutenant. So that might have information for you.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
Okay, and one person that I would absolutely almost demand that you vote for is Shirley Weber to be reelected for Secretary of State. Now, the good news from her point of view, from our point of view, I guess, is that she's the only Democrat running, but it doesn't mention that on the poll because it's a oh, no, it isn't. I take that back. It is mentioned, but we had her in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the we is the senior caucus of the California Democratic Party. And she just, as always, does a brilliant job of explaining what her duties are and what her, and she told some great stories. At some point, we might point you to the YouTube channel for the senior caucus, and you can find what she was talking about. But once you hear it, you will want to vote for her.
And now there is also a Cal Matters on insurance as well, if that could help.
I'm sorry, who on insurance?
For the insurance, is it called commissioner?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, I thought so. Yeah. So the reason why I chose Cal Matters, and if anybody feels differently, I respect that. Cal Matters is a very thorough, progressive, honest, to the point publication regarding California. So I personally really respect it. I would be very interested to see how the people I look at as allies, but right in there, it has the insurance commissioner as well as lieutenant governor. I'm personally, like I said, voting for Fiona Ma because of the connection with Betty Yee and Jane Kim because of the overwhelming progressive support for Jane Kim for insurance commissioner.
Okay.
That's my personal votes, but
Yeah.
I put in those so you could choose.
Well, it's better than my nothing information.
And I had a hard time voting for insurance commissioner because there's 2 or 3 people that I like. One of them was Jane Kim. One of them is Ben Allen. And it was a very tough choice, and it was almost a coin toss as to which one I voted for.
So which one did you vote for?
It's a secret ballot. Okay.
I mean, that's what you meant by open, right? Like a little bit more engaging, because this is new for us.
Any more offices that you would like to hear about?
Yeah, and I could look up while we're on here.
I'm trying to get more women in upper offices, so you know who I might go with.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This is brilliant.
Yeah, it looks like she is, in fact, the only woman running for insurance.
Yes.
Yeah. And we need some more female leaders to bring in more of our element.
I agree.
Whatever that is. A balance in government. That's all I have to say. And except thank you, everyone.
You know, I've been through the fires, and Ben's been through the fires, and I'm definitely supporting Ben Allen. Jane Kim has some crazy ideas like single payer fire insurance. I'm not sure exactly how that would work. As far as
Betty, thank you for that, because I'm going to be voting in person. Dorothy, I'm sorry. I don't know. My brain was on Betty. I don't know why. Dorothy, thank you for that, because honestly, I need to start talking to you a lot more, because what you're voting for, you're looking at it through a woman's eyes. You're looking at it through a professional woman's eyes who has struggled through all kinds of things and succeeded.
Thank you.
So I'm going to change my vote for insurance commissioner. Thank you. I mean, I vote in person, so the one I mark on my ballot, I'll just have to redo. So thank you.
All right. Well, that's great news. Yeah. Ben's been my state senator for a long time. He's been very responsive. I saw Jane Kim at the LACDP meeting. I was totally unimpressed. She runs for things. She likes to run for things. If someone wanted more information about Tom Steyer, so I would just ignore all the stuff that you hear about Tom Steyer's investments in the past. He grew up in a family where his mother was a teacher. His father actually worked in the Nuremberg trials. And he was like, what was that show that with, I forget, there was a show where the kid was a right wing and his parents were left wing. And that was, I forget the name of it, with Michael, whatever. But anyway, I'm old.
Is it All in the Family?
Yeah. Like, not All in the Family, the other one. It's
Family Ties.
Yeah, something like. So anyway, Tom Steyer was that guy, and he went out and he said he's going to make a lot of money, and he made a lot of money. And then he realized that was a bad thing to be doing, so he just put the company in blind trust kind of thing and said, take all my money out of coal, take all my money out of prisons, take all my money out of the bad stuff, and he walked away and started trying to do the right thing. And I met him back in 2016. He was at the convention doing this next gen thing where he was trying to organize young people to work on the environment. And I didn't have
registration too, because I worked on that project.
Okay, so you know.
I know.
And so it's the oil conglomerates and other billionaires are all ganging up and spending a fortune on commercials to attack Tom. And it's very unfortunate that people kind of fall for them, but hopefully there'll be enough people who won't fall for them, and we'll be able to elect Tom as our governor.
Yeah, and the one thing I could say, working on one of those projects here in San Diego, Tom took his own money. This was about 10 years ago.
Yeah, all with his own money.
All with his own money. And he gave it to groups. And I remember part of our training was, that reminder, because we've all seen people register and try to push people towards certain parties. And he was adamant about all of us going through training, even though we took it very seriously as Democrats, to when people marked off Republican, even if they were pushed by people sponsoring them, to merely say, thank you for showing up to vote. And that is what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to say, hey, by the way, look at Green Party or look at this party. You're supposed to just thank them for registering. That's it.
You know,
And
go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I have something about Tom Steyer too that I would like to mention. He has been criticized heavily, excuse me, for saying we can lower electric rates by 25%. Now, and he's never said how, but there is a way. And I would like to, the fact that he is going to give me his phone number, maybe I can suggest this or at least text him about it. My brother lived, he passed away last year, but he lived in a house in Los Angeles County that was the same size as mine in square footage, had solar panels like mine does, and he had as many people living in the house as I do. He had electric, kitchen appliances, and his electric bill was half mine every month. The reason is because the electricity in the city of LA, and Dorothy can correct me if I'm wrong, is run by the city of LA as a nonprofit. And if that were some sort of law, that would easily lower people's electric rates by at least 25%.
Yeah, in LA's Department of Water and Power, I'd be interested to see how your bill compares with someone in LA who's got Southern California Edison, which is what I have.
Yeah, and I can tell you SDG&E probably, it's almost like they're trying to win the prize for having the highest electric rates. And I can remember a long time ago getting really pissed off about that. I actually testified to the CPUC about it at one point, and of course nothing came of that. And I've lost my train of thought a little bit, but where was I? Okay, well, never mind.
Well, the CPUC has been the problem all along. The governors appoint people who are on the payroll of the utility companies to represent the consumers. It's insane.
Right, and and I did remember what I was going to say. I called SDG&E to complain about their high electric bills. And I said, I came from Missouri where our electric rates were 7 cents a kilowatt hour. Needless to say, this was years ago. And, why are yours so high? And they said, our electric bills are not the highest in the country. They're significantly lower than they were in Missouri, where you have winters. In other words, they changed the topic. I was saying their electric rates were high. They said the electric bills were not
here's
high.
my understanding of why we have this problem. Investors in the utilities are guaranteed a 10% rate of return. Now, this is an investment that can't go wrong. It's not like a stock that can go down. It's not like real estate that could go down. This doesn't go anywhere. It's like money in the bank, but yet they guarantee the investors a 10% rate of return. And that rate of return is what's causing these high utility bills, because 10% rate of return on a secure investment like investing in a utility company is crazy.
Okay, can I tell you all a little story? Those of you who know me, that I cannot be held back from telling stories. 8 years ago, when Newsom was first running for governor, we had a meet and greet with him. It was kind of a small group, and he was standing in front and taking questions, but no one was asking questions. Now, he recognized me because I was at the time Progressive Caucus chair, and he had spoken at the Progressive Caucus. And he asked me if I had a question. And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. So I thought I would throw him a softball question. And the softball question was, the California Public Utilities Commission is commissioners is appointed by the governor. When you make your appointments, assuming you win, will you appoint commissioners who are more interested in supporting the public or the utilities? And thinking, what a softball question, what an easy answer, when he's up trying to get votes from people. And his response after a long pause was, it's complicated. That's when I knew that we were not going to get any effect. And I was at a meet and greet with Tom Steyer's here in San Diego and wanted to ask him the same exact question and didn't get a chance. Well, now that I have his contact information, I may just get that chance, but I want to do it in a public setting where other people can hear it, because when he said it's complicated, the whole room let out in it, in unison, and Anyway, it's almost 5:30. We have that's our hard quit time. So anybody got anything else they want to quickly that they want
Lorna
to
Moore has been waiting.
Lorna has been asking, has her hand up. So
Lorna, go ahead. You know what? The color of the hand that's up clashes with the color of your wall, and that's
I know. I was trying to figure out how to change that, but it's come down to Tom Steyer and Katie Porter for me, and I'm doing all my homework. And if you haven't seen the Ezra Klein forum that he did on housing a couple of days ago in the New York Times, he had all 5 candidates. The 2 Republicans were invited, but they declined, thankfully. And it was a 90-minute thing where it was very fair and super informative. And if you care about the housing issue, it's super complicated, and they all seemed very experienced, except for Tom Steyer. So I was really disappointed, but I'm sure he can learn, but I'm almost hoping he appoints Katie Porter to be his housing czar or something, because the first thing out of his mouth was manufactured housing. We're still building like a century ago. Well, we're not going to build 2.5 million more houses in California with single family homes. You just can't do it. So most of it's going to have to be apartments. So right away, I'm like,
they're making manufactured apartment buildings. They're doing it. And they can do it.
Well,
not huge ones, but moderate sized ones.
That's not
I have a manufactured house, and I would never go back to a stick house.
No, that's not my debate. Manufactured houses are fine, but if you watch it, you'll see there's so much more to it than, to answer.
We have to think outside the box here, because what we're doing isn't working.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's why it's a good idea to watch this forum. It's very interesting. And I just I want to go with the person who is polling the highest, but I tell you, Katie Porter deserves it. You can't ask that woman one question that she doesn't know a bunch of answers about. She does her homework, and she's amazing. I don't know how she does it with 3 kids, but
you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I just hope Tom Steyer, seeks out experts like, Villaraigosa too was pretty, very experienced in it with all his background, although he's now sort of throwing his lot in with people like, what is his name, Mahan, who, just want to throw the baby out with the bathwater just to get anything built. Like, no more environmental quality reports or anything, just, go and take the person by eminent domain and build, and so it's
5 more minutes.
Dangerous. So those are my.
I do see your point. When I watched that debate again, and I think I was talking to somebody earlier when that guy turned on her and mocked her mothering. I really wanted to reach through the TV because she even answered that with such grace and such positivity, and at the same time said, that's not correct. She is a strong woman. She really is. And I really hope that she connects with Tom because of her polling numbers, because she does need to be in leadership in a lot of ways. So I hear your point, Lorna.
Okay, may I say something?
Okay, but I have one more comment.
Okay, go ahead.
About Mike Tubbs. I was able to meet and hear him speak yesterday, and he's great, except he's very much in favor of the developer's remedy. I don't know if you guys know anything about that, but it's a thing where a lot of opportunistic developers are taking advantage of overworked cities who can't approve their project fast enough. So if they don't do this, that, and this and that by a certain time period, there's this law in the state called the developer's remedy that allows them to build anything they want. And so, for example, here in Santa Barbara, in the Mission, where the famous Mission is, and the whole Mission Park Historic District, they managed to get a lot up there, and they want to build an 8-story, huge, like 400 apartment building right there, next door to the Mission. It's just insane, and it looks like it's going to happen because they have no way out of it. But that's why I'm really worried about this housing thing, because people are talking about let's get rid of the CEQA laws and the NEPA laws and everything. And I'm from Pasadena originally, where they came in and just took people's properties, because before CEQA, Caltrans just came in and bought up everybody's properties and booted them out.
Can I say something? Nobody's saying, Jesse?
Except Chuck, we're out of time.
Oh, well, like it.
All right. Make it one sentence.
Okay, so I think no one seems to be addressing the problem that there's more empty houses than there are homeless people. Why aren't we building anything? Why aren't we putting people? And the reason we're not is because of the financialization, and that's caused by monopolies. And Tom Steyer is the only one saying the word monopolies and doing something about it. There's other solutions. That's crazy stuff. It's empty houses. Put people in the empty houses.
Okay,
Tom Steyer's got the solution.
I have a comment, if I could and this is only because we're wrapping up. You may have noticed that the anti-Tom Steyer's commercials on TV, those of us who are older actually watch TV, are funded by realtors.
Mm-hmm.
And my theory is the reason why is because he's talking about low-income housing, and the realtors are worried that they won't be making the commission that they were. That's just my theory. It's sort of a conspiracy theory, but it may
And
well
really
be right.
quick, I'm from Orange County. I voted for Katie Porter twice in the past. All I can tell everybody, there's real problems with her. And she's underwater with the declined estate. She has a terrible relationship with the Hispanics. She has a terrible relationship with people in the legislature and even with people in the law school. So it's not a good. They feel that she needs to have agency experience. She does, as far as being a governor, it would not be good at this point. I don't know what Tom's response is, but it's not a good vote.
Thank you. I didn't want to say it, but I'm glad that you did, because
Well,
she has no experience in state
on
government.
that note, we're running over time. So I want to thank all of you for coming. It was a great meeting. Thanks to you.
Thank you.
You members. And it will be on our YouTube channel in a week or so, because in putting this meeting together, it took so much out of me that I don't want to spend a whole lot of time editing it. But anyway, watch your email, and you'll get, if you want to see it again or point someone to it, I'll have the instructions on how you can get to it. So thanks everybody for coming.